We are rendering down some beef fat into tallow because I am pretty much out of skincare. So I have about 5 pounds. I'm gonna do all 5 pounds. But when I go to work with my skincare, I'm only gonna use 1 pound of it. And I'll just store the rest in jars. Now that I have all of my beef fat in the crock pot, I'm going to prep it for rendering. So I'm doing a wet render, and that means I'm using water and salt. So I'm using Redmond's real salt, and I'm gonna add in 4 to 5 tablespoons of salt. And then I'm gonna be adding in 6 cups of water. I'm gonna put the lid on, and then I'm gonna cook it on low, and I'm gonna let it render down. And then we'll come back and we'll do part 2.
Welcome back to step 2 of rendering beef fat into tallow for skincare. The next step in your tallow process is separating the tallow from the fat. This has been cooking for a little over 24 hours, but you will know when it's done when the chunks of fat sink to the bottom. Now you need to strain it all out and get rid of the fat chunks. You can do this multiple ways, but I took a slotted spoon and scooped out as much fat as I could. This is an extra step in the process, but doing this prevents your cheesecloth from getting full and keeps everything a bit cleaner. You'll see that in just a minute. I remove all of the fat and leave it in a bowl. What you'll need next is a flexible bowl, a fine mesh strainer, and some cheesecloth. Now you're going to scoop the tallow into the bowl, letting it strain through. The cheesecloth will collect any of the extra chunks. This is where removing most of them at the beginning helps you from getting your cheesecloth clogged up. Once it does get full, I just dumped it into my bowl with the other chunks. After I've emptied my crock pot, I took the bowl of the fatty pieces and dumped them through the cheesecloth as I could see a lot of tallow was in there. I did this in sections and squeezed as much fat out as possible. I dumped the remains back into the crock pot. Once you've done this, you're going to let the towel cool. I will wait overnight, and then I'll come back tomorrow and clean the puck of tallow. Welcome back to part 3 of rendering your beef fat into tallow for skincare. Now you're going to remove your puck of tallow, and you're going to see how many impurities are left in the water. As you can see, mine is quite murky. So I'm going to remove it, and I'm going to scrape the bottom layer of the puck just to remove anything that it was sitting in. It's going to be kind of brown. That's what you're looking for. Anyways, mine always crumbles, so I'm just checking it in pieces. This part for me is quite messy. Next, we're going to render it again. If you're struggling with a beefy smell, the more rendering you do, the less it smells. So we're going to continue this process until the water is clear. It may take 2 times, it may take 3 or 4 more times. Then I'm going to put it back in my crock pot and add more water. I did about 3 cups and 2 tablespoons of salt. I will cook this on low overnight, and it should be rendered down by the morning. This will not take as long as the first render. And that's it. We'll see you for part 4. This is the next day after I strained off the tallow and put it in a bowl and let it set up again. This time I put it in the fridge, and I was able to get a firm piece of tallow, and it was really easy to work with. But this was just another render, strain, and set, and you're going to do this multiple times until your puck of tallow comes out clean. And I just use a knife to scrape off that bottom layer. My salt has minerals in it, which does cause some discoloration, but I am just going to scrape it off, and we are going to put it back in the crock pot.
Oh, I thought that was like a wheel of cheese.
Why are you cutting up the skincare?
Sully's in there with a big old wedge of skincare. You like to put that stuff on? Does it make your face feel good? Oh, that's good.
After I scraped off all of the impurities at the bottom, I just went ahead and chopped up the puck so I could put it back in my crock pot for another render. It doesn't fit in my crock pot unless I cut it up.
So go put those back.
Go. Go.
Okay, let's go get in your seat. Sure. Come on.
Good morning. It's the next morning. My tallow has been rendering again, and I'm just going to scoop it into my bowl. Oh, you can't even see what I'm doing. It's pretty clear. This will probably be my last render. All right, now we're gonna let this set up. I'll be making it into the skincare. My guess is that this point, this is actually just from the minerals in my salt. My salt is this color. And this is what happened last time. I rendered down multiple times and it still ended up like this. But otherwise the tallow is pure. So I am gonna scrape this off and I think I'm gonna be done. All right, so from this point, here's what you can do. You can put it back in your crock pot, render it down with no salt and no water, and that's gonna be liquid. And then you can pour it in your jars. And this is just giving you something to work with because this is hard to put in a jar. But I am gonna make the skincare out of this. So I need to measure out a pound. My measurements are for a pound. And that makes a lot of skincare. And so I'm going to measure out a pound and then I'm gonna melt the rest of it down and store it in a mason jar. And when I'm ready to make my next batch of skincare, I just grab the tallow out and then go into my skincare process from there. So we're gonna weigh out 1 pound. I started with 5 pounds of fat. So let's see how much I'm down to. 3.5 pounds. Right here. 1 pound. Okay, so there's 1 pound. This is gonna go into my crock pot, melt it down and into a mason jar. And then this is good for cooking, or you can then whip it into skincare. Now that you have your pound that you're gonna work with, I set mine by the fire for a bit to soften it and made sure it was like fluffy. And now we're gonna add our ingredients. So what I'm using is, I'm gonna be using 4 ounces of jojoba oil. You can use olive oil, you can use almond oil, any type of oil. I did almond last time, but I wanna try the jojoba. And then you can add in any type of mix-ins that you want. I'm doing some cinnamon bark. I did the research like a while ago when I ordered all of this and picked these for specific reasons that I cannot tell you right now, but I picked them for a reason and I'll share what their like properties are. I'm gonna do some eucalyptus oil, some lemon essential oil, rosemary oil. They're all supposed to be having good property for your skin. Now, I think I'm just gonna guesstimate. I'm gonna start out with the 4 ounces of this though, and then I think you can just kind of add in and play with it until you kind of get the mixture and the smell that you like. So we're doing it together. This is my first time going rogue off of, I'm not following someone's exact ingredients besides the 4 ounces of the jojoba oil. So at this point, as I'm whipping it, I'm just smelling it and making sure it's a smell that I want. I realized I don't love the rosemary smell as much, but the cinnamon smell is delicious. So I'm just trying to balance the smell that I like at this point, and that's just with using essential oils. So I think I'm getting close. I think I'm gonna add just a little bit more cinnamon bark, but it's smelling really good. It smells very fresh and herb-like because of the rosemary and because of the eucalyptus, but it's not bad. Okay, here it is. It smells amazing. It smells so good. Okay, so from here, I don't have any gallon bags. I ran out. We're gonna put it in a bag and then we're gonna pipe it into my containers. I really need a bigger bag. I literally do not have one. I'm gonna be so moisturized by the end of this. Tiniest little nip. Okay, so after trying the tallow last night, I put it on and noticed my face was a little hot. So I did some research and it turns out cinnamon bark oil can be warming to your skin. And so you need to make sure you dilute it really well. So what I did is I just put all of my tallow back into a bowl, added just a little bit extra. I did almond oil because that's what I had on hand and just kind of diluted it a bit, and it is no longer feeling spicy. So this was all a learning curve. To be completely honest, I think next time I will just do the 1 pound of tallow, the 4 ounces of oil, 1 ounce of vanilla extract, and some essential oils to smell. I'm not gonna try all of the concoctions to add to like better your that are good for your skin, unless I have like an exact recipe to follow. That's where I kind of messed up, but it still works. You can even use it plain. You don't have to add anything besides the oil, but I'm just gonna keep it simpler and go from there because then I'm gonna have room for less error. But that is basically how you make your own tallow for skincare. It really is super easy. It just kind of takes a while, but that's okay because having like clean ingredient skincare is worth it in my opinion.